I hereby open the meeting for February 21st, the February voting meeting. So I am ready to call to order. Stephanie, would you mind doing the roll call?
Yes, of course.
Too many things in my head.
Councilmember Chmielewski.
Present.
Councilmember Cerna.
Here.
Councilmember Barton.
Here.
Councilmember Elam.
Here.
Councilmember Fry.
Here.
Vice President Kingsley.
Here.
President Sokolowski.
Here.
Mayor Aronson.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As part of Council President announcements this evening, I wanted to let everyone know that prior to this voting session, Borough Council held an executive session on both February 13th, 2024 and February 21st, 2024, both on personnel matters. I wanted to take just a moment to acknowledge the passing of a very special friend and member of our Borough family. It's with heavy heart that I share the recent passing of Vivian Antelucci. To her family and friends, we send our sincere condolences. For those of you who didn't have the opportunity to meet Vivian, I describe her as a community powerhouse. When I first talked to Vivian about my desire to run as an elected official, she shared some words of wisdom. She told me taking responsibility for the well-being and the improvement of a community requires a lot of commitment and dedication. You need to ensure empathy, honesty, and integrity in your leadership and decisions. I can only hope that I have a similar community legacy as Vivian did. Vivian served on the Zoning Hearing Board for over 20 years in Conshohocken. She was instrumental in the growth and development of what Conshohocken is today. She was also a trusted historian and mentor to many of the past and present council and board members over her lifetime. She was a leader not only in our borough, but she was a leader of the Montgomery County Democratic Party for many years. Vivian was a master chef and baker. She loved sharing her delights in cooking with her friends and family. I spent many hours in her kitchen talking with her and her husband, who was her long-term sweetheart of 50 years, while filling my belly with some really yummy Italian foods. So farewell, Vivian, you will be missed. All right, tonight's meeting is a voting meeting, and the agenda has several very important topics. The first of those topics is our Fayette Street Corridor District. Just a little bit of background about this topic. The intent is to implement recommendations from the 2018 Comprehensive Plan, unify the Fayette Street Corridor as an attractive, vibrant, mixed-use corridor that promotes pedestrian walkability, with a focus on revitalizing and development of the Fayette Street Corridor, specifically to encourage economic development, redevelopment, and the use of underutilized properties. The timeline of that project was 2022 through 2024. May of 2022, there was a community public forum for the future of the Fayette Street corridor. September of 2022, there was an initiation of a community task force. In September of 2022 through February of 2023, we had advertisement, interviews, and voted in members of the community onto the task force. In March of 2023 through September of 2023, there were public task force meetings. October of 2023, it was presented to the Public Planning Commission meeting, and with that, they also discussed the Montgomery County Planning Commission's findings. In January of 2024, we had 3 individual advertisements of the ordinance, and in February of 2024, we had a public hearing. So in total, there were over 15 meetings on the topic of the Fayette Street Corridor. Number 2, we'll talk about an ordinance to appoint a fire chief. We'll also talk about the routine approvals of escrow releases, appropriations, appointments. We'll talk about a SEPTA MOU, stormwater sewer intergovernmental cooperation agreement, and bill of sale. So they are the topics for this evening. With that, I will call for any public comment on agenda items only. Please note that anyone who wants to make any comments on the overlay as applicable should make the comments at this time. Note that while the comments can be made at this time, they will not officially be on record for the proposed overlay district hearing, as the hearing was in a prior meeting. Anyone want to come to the stand to make public comment on any agenda items? Okay. We have no public comment?
Hi, Mary Tiernan, 1016 Harry Street, Conshohocken, PA. Again, thank you for reiterating the history on this. Just to reiterate, as I said at the last meeting, my concerns and opposition to this. As a resident of Harry Street, I think residents on Harry Street, Forest Street, the avenues are going to be detrimentally affected by this ordinance severely. I am concerned what the impact is going to be on our property values. I don't think that that has been studied in all of the meetings. Again, I respect and appreciate all the work that has been done, but in looking to develop what I thought was an asset of Fayette Street, that it was quieter and mixed use. You already had office and residential there. I don't think that this is considering the impact for those of us on Harry Street, Forest Street, and the avenues. I don't think that there's sufficient parking available to support what is being contemplated. We already on Harry Street have such an impact from parking from Penn Good Shepherd's Physical Therapy, and I'm a supporter of them. I love them, but we already have that overlap on Harry Street. I can't see, I'm scared to think of what is going to be coming. As I've said, I'm concerned about how this is going to affect more development, rainwater for us. If there are residents with restaurants which had never been on our side of the block and on most of that part of Fayette Street, from 9th to 12th, if there are restaurants there, the extra noise, the extra people, traffic, parking, potential of rodents, all of that, I'm concerned for that one. I know that there has been significant prior meetings, and I appreciate all that. I still think for a lot of people, they're not aware of this. And when you go looking on the Borough Facebook page or Twitter, I saw that was posted this week on Facebook and Twitter. I didn't see any comments saying this is a great idea or we want that. When you look at other Facebook groups geared towards a Conshohocken audience, it seems that most people are against more development and have concerns about that. So I just strongly encourage you, as my friend and neighbor Marianne Cook said, this is not going to be just for a few years. Whatever is voted on is going to affect Conshohocken for decades to come. And I'm just concerned on that one. At the very least, if you are intent on going through with this, I saw in one of the recommendations that the Montgomery County Planning Commission had a comment that if there's parking, at least have a 10-foot buffer with landscaping or fencing. I don't see that in the proposal. Some other concerns that I have on this, as Marianne and others had said, if you look at overlay ordinances for other towns, it's just so much more detailed. And I feel that developers can really take advantage of maybe some of the vagueness that is in here to our detriment. And I've been so concerned about the overlay. I really hadn't said very much to Ralph or to anyone else about the MOU, but I am also concerned about the possibility of more development, whether it's apartments, townhouses, or condos on the SEPTA property. I think that at the very least, we need a pause. I mean, when you think of what the traffic is in Conshohocken, what the impact is on our streets, on our sewer lines, on everything, Harry Street is a mess right now. And I know that, or my understanding, hasn't been repaving for a lot of Harry Street to see if Aqua is doing anything. But right now, I can't imagine what that's doing with how it's, potholes on several blocks. As we get more and more development, we just don't have the infrastructure to support that. So I also have concerns about that one. And thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Nina Lafferty. I'm on the 100 block of West 10th Avenue, and I echo many of the previous comments about the overlay. I feel like I just want more information about it. Again, being on the 100 block of West 10th, I feel like it's going to definitely affect Maple. I'm concerned about the parking, the additional trash, rodents, water runoff, things like that that could potentially be coming our way. I also have small children, so more traffic is a concern for me. I'm very supportive to a lot of the building in town, but again, I think, as the previous commenter said, I think we just really need to work on improving the infrastructure because it's small and it's really not set up to support all this growth. I think the growth is wonderful, but I think the reason many of us want to raise our families here is because it does have a small town vibe to it, and it feels like a safe community, and it feels like that's sort of slipping away by all this growth with nothing really. It doesn't feel like there's much to support the growth to keep it safe. So that would be my recommendation. Just some more information before it's finalized. Thank you.
Good evening. Marianne Cook, 401 East 10th Avenue. So yeah, again, there's been some great development in Conshohocken. I think that's why we all are still here and appreciate it. I echo the concerns about what the increased development of this overlay is designed specifically to bring will do to all the surrounding areas, and the triggering effect when you have additional development, the runoff on east and west side, water flows downhill, and the reduction in impervious surfaces. With the best of planning, we already have problems what that's going to bring to the properties in a sinkhole area. But I have to tell you, we were looking at, coming down here tonight when I come over the bridge coming home. When I come back into Conshohocken from Plymouth to hit our small 1 square mile, I never have had the thought, I wish there was redevelopment in Conshohocken. I wish we revitalized the main grand street of Fayette Street. We need more economic development. When I'm out walking every evening or on the weekends, I never think, I wish Conshohocken were more walkable. We are already all these things. This is why people are here. As an individual living in Conshohocken, I wish a lot of things were in our beautiful 1 square mile. As a realist, and as one who loves our borough and my neighbors, business and residential, I know it is impossible to have all of the things I wish for squeezed in 1 square mile. And I know no zoning overlay or me coming before a zoning committee every month, if I were a developer, an investor, or a property owner, asking for those things is a real solution. And so I would wish that in terms of this overlay, that there was much more specificity to protect the historical fabric, charm, and what makes Conshohocken for 150 years, before with one vote tonight, you open up a door for that all to slip away. And a handful of people may get what they want in their 1 square mile, but thousands of others today and far into the future will not. What is the rush? 15 meetings. Arguably. That's great. For something this important, please, what is the rush to take some more time? That's all I'm asking.
Anyone else for public comment? I just want to say thank you to everyone that stood up to give their feedback. It is very important to all of us up here to hear what our community has to say. And putting yourselves out there is important for us, and it is greatly appreciated, at least I know from myself and many of the council members that we've talked about. So thank you, everyone. Okay. Presentations. So first up on the agenda is to conduct an interview for a vacancy on the Sewer Authority Board. Mr. Julian Moralia, would you please come to the table? Thank you, sir. Or you can stand, whichever you choose.
Is this a mic?
Mike,
Gentlemen, ladies,
how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I had a wonderful day yesterday.
So, Mr. Moralia, can you tell us why you are interested in serving on the Sewer Authority Board?
It's really concise. I have always served in various boards. I've been on a council, I've been on a planning board, zoning hearing board, and at one period in my life I was the chairman of a water and sewer authority, and that was in Euclid Township, Chester County. So I'm familiar with authorities and their legal rights and abilities. In my lifetime, I have built 2 sewer plants to accommodate the construction of new villages. And I've, I would say, been in charge of putting a lot of sewer and water lines in the ground. So I have a fundamental knowledge of what the job is when you run an authority. At my age, my family is telling me I shouldn't be working, so I thought I might as well use some of my knowledge and bring it to this table when I saw that advertisement come up. I have the skills, I have the desire. This is my home, has been. So if you would accept me, I would appreciate it, and I'll work for the betterment of the borough.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Moralia?
Yeah, I do. Hi, Julian. It's good to see you again. Hi, it's good to see you again.
Hi, Kathleen.
Have you been keeping up with the sewer authority is going to be taking over the stormwater management, and
Yes,
what do you
ma'am.
think of that program?
I have to tell you, historically, they were never married in the communities that I worked. One was run by the council and the other run by the sewer authority. It's novel. I'm not sure that, I should say in a positive sense, I'm not sure that there's not better value in garnering funds from various parts of other governments, federal, state, etc., to help to rebuild both of those systems in our borough. So it ought to be interesting to see how we can do that, how we can not only garner the money, but conjointly use some of the engineering. Instead of having to put sewer lines in this way and stormwater this way, there may be ways that we can efficiently get it done with monies that are available.
Anyone else?
Yes, is there anything, Julian, is there anything that you think is a pressing issue that needs to be addressed right away when you join this board?
Well, the first thing I would want to learn is what our capacities are on the domestic sewer side, so that I can understand what the loads are, what the effluents are looking like, just so I could learn. I'm not challenging anybody. As far as the stormwater management, there are so many interesting things that I think that we can do to assist the reconstruction or original construction of sectors of it to help what almost 200 years, I'm looking for the sign, 200 years of water running downhill without governance, and I'm not blaming anybody, it's just the way it was in 1850 and even in 1950 when nobody talked about stormwater management. It was get it off the hill and get it into the river. That was the whole objective. Well, we didn't, as human beings, do too good a job. I think there were better things to do. Now, I think that. Then I didn't even know. So what would I attack if, as Kathleen pointed out, if and when this juncture comes and the authority ends up with it, it's going to be fun to do the studies to figure out how we can better control the runoff for the borough and therefore accommodate the river and everybody downstream from us.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
You're welcome.
So Julian, one of the impetuses around looking to match stormwater management over with the public utility is based on some of the regulations that are now coming our way and will only get stronger and more aggressive. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with government regulations and how a small authority will be able to manage through it?
The answer, in my mind, is, and I stated it looking at Michael, and that is that authorities have power. It's, in many cases, a situation where the authority members are there for reasons that really aren't tied to the real business of running a sewer and water authority. In this case, I can bring to you knowledge and know where to go within the structure of the state and the county. When I say where, I'm not talking about politicians. I'm talking about the people who, on the bureaucratic side, run the systems. And you can be innovative. If the rule says X and you know that you can either improve X or remove X to get a better result, that's what I believe authority members should be doing. Think their way through the process, know the physics, know the results of doing A or B, and then drive it home to the other governments so that you can get funded to improve your own properties.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, we appreciate your willingness to put yourself out there and join another board and committee in your retirement days. So
Well,
thank you for your time tonight.
you're welcome.
Okay, next up on the agenda is land use matters, public hearings, and ordinances. So the first item on the agenda is consider adopting Ordinance 2, 2024, that amends Chapter 27 of the zoning code by adding a Fayette Street Corridor District and amends the zoning map for the Borough of Conshohocken to include the Fayette Street Corridor Overlay District. Mr. Peters, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, and Ed, I think you just caught Ms. Sokolowski's introduction. So that is indeed the ordinance that you have up for consideration this evening. You held a hearing on that ordinance at your last meeting on February 7th pursuant to public notice as required under the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code. You received significant feedback during that meeting, and one of the things I and staff were directed to do was to make sure that one of those specific issues, which was making sure it was clear that the HRC historic resource overlay was in no way, shape, or form superseded by this ordinance, which, as council knows, was absolutely not the intention. One of the things I try to do in drafting is make sure that an ordinance can be applied by the general public without confusion. So as Exhibit B10, which we'll attach administratively to the hearing, is a slight revision to the ordinance that would add the following. Language that would provide, quote, a historic single-family detached dwelling as defined pursuant to Section 27-1902-C definitions of this chapter being the zoning ordinance, shall remain subject to the requirements of Part 19-C HRC Historic Residential Conservation Overlay District, even if the single-family detached dwelling is proposed to be expanded, altered, demolished, or converted as part of a development under the FCO district. That would be added under 27-2306 general requirements and would therefore apply to all development under the Fayette Street Corridor Overlay District. The second would be adding to the interpretation section, section 27-2308, the following similar language. Furthermore, the provisions of Part 19-C HRC Historic Residential Conservation Overlay District shall apply with full force and effect to all single-family detached dwellings as defined pursuant to Section 27-1902-C definitions, even if the single-family detached dwelling is proposed to be expanded, altered, demolished, or converted as part of a development under the FCO district. And then finally, although the repealer section does not get codified into what goes in the borough's code of ordinances, we would add to Section 4 of the ordinance, which is the section that repeals prior inconsistent ordinances or parts thereof, the following: nothing herein is intended to or shall repeal or modify the provisions of Part 19-C of Chapter 27 zoning of the borough's code of ordinances, which part was last revised by ordinance number 04-2018, adopted September 19th, 2018, which ordinance number 04-2018 shall remain in full force and effect. Because this was always the intention of the ordinance, you can make those changes this evening. It leaves absolutely no doubt that the HRC would continue to apply even if a development occurred pursuant to the Fayette Street Corridor Overlay District. With that, as noted, the hearing was closed on February 7th, so the matter is now ready for your vote this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
You're welcome.
For the vote this evening, we'll do a roll call vote, and I'll ask the borough manager to take us down that pathway, please.
Need motions.
Oh, I'm sorry. First off, I need a motion. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2024 that amends Chapter 27 of the zoning code by adding the Fayette Street Corridor District and amends the zoning map for the Borough of Conshohocken to include the Fayette Street Corridor Overlay District?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion.
I'll second it.
I have a second. All in favor?
Or roll call.
Roll call.
That's okay.
You're efficient.
Roll call vote, please.
You're efficient.
I'm being efficient.
Councilmember Chmielewski.
Yay.
Councilmember Serna.
Yay.
Councilmember Barton.
No.
Councilmember Elam.
Yes.
Councilmember Frye.
Yes.
Vice President Kingsley.
No.
President Sokolowski.
Yes. With that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeas and 2 noes.
That is
Ordinance passes.
With that, we thank our court reporter for his time.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Ed. See you soon.
Stephanie, one of the things that I want to make sure of for council and for our community, there is a lot of concern about the details. I think Mary Ann pointed that out. A lot of that has to do with the land development portion of the process. What can we do to ensure that we have the setbacks, the roof lines, the look of what we want up there and not the boxes and the looks? Are there things we can change about our planning and land development process that can enforce more of that, or how does that work?
Well, I think that those protections are already in place with your current process. Even though it's separate from zoning, it's your subdivision and land development process. So that requires a developer to bring more along the lines of what Marianne was talking about in terms of architecture, concept, renderings, what it is that you're going to look like. That has to come into the administration, and all of that feedback was very helpful. It's on file. It's actually on record, which is important because we can always refer back to it. So as developers are coming in with proposed development, we see that first. We're that gatekeeper, the one that's vetting what that look and feel is going to end up being presented to the public. That also includes public opportunity. So any development that comes in that's going through the land development process first has to go in front of the Planning Commission, which is also a board that's appointed by council, but they're members of the community. They're businesses and residents. So those are public meetings. You can see the development that's proposed. You can have comments and input in that aspect. And then after that, there's an additional step. They have to come in front of Borough Council. So you're going to be seeing those design aesthetics, everything that Marianne and Mary and Betsy have, they took the time to vocalize those concerns. So yes, this is a zoning decision, but the protections that you're looking for, that you're asking me if they exist, they do exist. And that the best part about it is it's a public process. So it will be our job as an administration to make sure that the areas that are affected by that proposed development, they have notice. I think that's probably one thing that we'll need to discuss collectively in terms of how that information gets out. However, I will say that this council in particular has been very proactive about that. They've made that very clear that that's a priority. And so that's, it's been taken in and will be, pushed back out, especially from your administration.
So based on our process and how things roll through, we will have the opportunity to know what's coming our way at any given time. So if we felt that things are going in a direction where we're uncomfortable with and the community is uncomfortable with, can we reopen and amend an ordinance? Because I don't.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing that again tonight on this agenda. So the borough doesn't stay stagnant. The best thing about this borough is that it continues to evolve. It continues to move forward. And with that being said, and ordinances, they have to be constantly evaluated. Because if we're not doing our job then, if an ordinance is just remaining the same and it's not applying to the realities of what the community is experiencing, or what the community needs. And therefore, the short answer is yes, an ordinance can always be amended. There is a process that goes along with that, and as you saw tonight, it is a public process. But it is our job, it's the community's job, and it's our job to listen to the community if there needs to be any amendments to any ordinances, just like we're doing this evening with our fire ordinance. Our fire department is growing. It's growing because our community is growing, and therefore we have to put regulations and specifications in that ordinance to meet the needs of the community and meet the needs of the department. We'd be doing the exact same thing when it comes to development, which we have done in the past as well.
And then the concerns about the stormwater and runoff, are those addressed in our new regs and functions that then could help assist those concerns? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
just
rubbing my neck because that was like a 2-year process in terms of taking the DEP's model ordinance as it pertains to stormwater. And, our engineer took the main brunt of that, but taking that entire ordinance that is required through the DEP and making it specific to the Borough of Conshohocken so that we're meeting those stringent regulations. We did that in 2022, I believe it was. So those ordinances exist, and that applies to any new development. So yes, any concerns about runoff from stormwater, no development is approved unless it goes through a stormwater review based off of the ordinance that currently exists. And I will tell you that fortunately for the borough, unfortunately for the developers that come into this borough, our engineer is very specific when it comes to ensuring that our ordinances and the regulations in the ordinances are met. Sorry, Karen.
And then lastly, and this is probably the hardest one of the borough, is the parking situation and the idea that we have had parking task forces in the past look at things. I don't know that there is a great solution for parking, but it is something that has to be continuously looked at and monitored with the projects as they come in.
We are always monitoring parking. That's always an issue. It's an issue throughout the borough. It has been relieved greatly in certain areas of the borough because council has made strategic decisions in terms of partnering with corporate entities to gain thousands of parking spaces in areas that greatly needed it. So are there concerns about parking in the upper avenues? Absolutely. And we hear you. And I think it's the role of all of the committees and all of the volunteers and the people that are elected and appointed and that serve the borough on a regular basis to make sure that, we're addressing parking in real time as opposed to being in a position where we're placing council having to just waive parking because you need to have economic viability up your main street. There's nowhere to put parking, so you're just waiving it. This ordinance, in reality, places regulations on the parking that's requiring a developer to at least provide parking in some sort of innovative way, as opposed to just waiving it. I know that's not a great answer. I know doesn't meet your concerns at all. But we are, unlike other municipalities, I would say that we have tapped into the resources that exist here and kind of tried to be innovative in our approach in terms of parking. The Borough Shuttle is online, where we are very excited about that. That's going to have to grow and evolve as well as it moves forward. That is taking advantage and supposed to take advantage of moving individuals in the borough without vehicles, without having to park cars, to take advantage of the corporate partnerships we have with parking structures in order to utilize that parking so that they're not being a burden on the residences. I know that the parking task force we had in the past was focused a lot on the commercial district, and there was a lot that came to fruition through that process. So do I have a great answer? Do I have an easy answer? No. But I will say that this municipality, unlike others, is trying to get creative and strategic in terms of utilizing resources we have at hand to look to alleviate parking that has a burden on our residences.
I said lastly parking, but I found another little start item that I have here.
That doesn't surprise me.
And it actually isn't for you.
Okay.
Maybe it is. It has to do with the safety of our residents on Forest and Harry Street once this does, and Fayette Street, and the Borough of Conshohocken. So I look at Acting Chief Lennon in the back and say, how can we better partner with the police department to ensure the safety of our residents as we grow and redevelop the upper avenues, which have historically been a quieter section of town. But I wouldn't say that with the traffic these days. I'm putting you on the spot.
Thank you. And I would say we have partnered with council, and as we've spoken about earlier, I have spoken with council about how the police department has plans to partner with the community, and the police department has plans to grow and evolve as the rest of our community and the rest of our departments have done with this borough.
Thank you. As you can hear, we are hearing your concerns. We will and promise to continue to work through all of this. We all are invested in this community, this small 1 square mile town that we all call home. So I do sincerely, from all of council, appreciate the feedback, and please continue providing feedback. Feedback is not a bad thing. Sometimes doesn't feel good, but it's not a bad thing. And to have open and honest discussion, and I think that's the commitment of this new council, is to be talking with the residents, hearing the feedback, and really coming up with the best plans for the future. So again, thank you, everyone. Okay, next up on the agenda is consider authorizing advertisement of an amendment to the Borough Fire Service Ordinance that adds the appointed position of the fire captain to the hierarchy of the authority as it applies to the fire services in the Borough of Conshohocken. I will turn this over to Mike Peters to recap on the amendment.
Thank you very much. In short, as we discussed at your last meeting, this would create the position of fire captain between the battalion chief and safety officer position. So the chain of command would go fire chief, deputy fire chief, assistant fire chief, battalion chief, new position fire captain, and then safety officers. And the other amendments are just made to effectuate the creation of that new position. That's it.
Does council have any questions on the amendment of the ordinance?
No.
Okay, with that, I'll need a motion to consider authorizing the advertisement of the amendment to the Borough Fire Service Ordinance that adds the appointed positions of fire captain to the hierarchy of the authority as it applies to fire services in our borough.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
Just a note that the advertisement will go out and the amended ordinance will be on your March 6th agenda for consideration.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is our consent agenda. The first item is to approve and adopt the January 2nd reorganization meeting and the January 17th regular meeting minutes. The second item is to approve the January ending treasurer's report and accounts payable reports. Any questions on either of those topics? Okay. With that, may I have a motion to approve and adopt the January 2nd reorg meeting and the January 17th regular meeting minutes?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. I'll also need a motion to approve the January ending treasurer's report and accounts payable in the amount of $1,532,808.93.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Consider approving a Sora West Financial Security Escrow Release number 14 in the amount of $17,930.30. Any questions on the escrow release? With that, may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Sora West Financial Security Escrow Release number 14 in the amount of $17,930.30.
To vote?
All in favor?
I'm getting there.
Sorry.
I'm reading my script. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, next up is consider approving Resolution 2020-403 for a supplemental appropriation to the budget of fiscal year 2024 in the amount of $79,860 to complete the purchase of a bucket truck, which was an approved capital item from fiscal year 23 budget for the Public Services Department. Any questions on this item?
I do have a question. So we took delivery of this, and now we're shipping it back to get the bucket.
No, we
Is
took
that-
delivery of the chassis portion of the truck. The lift portion actually was not available. So we did not take delivery of the lift portion of the truck, which is two separate parts, until 2024.
So has this been sitting?
The chassis portion of the truck has been sitting since May of 2023.
And depreciating?
Correct.
Okay.
Such is the economy and the supply chain.
I was going to say, do you want to talk a little bit about the availability of
But I
vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, right
But
now,
I don't
we're-
have to like it.
I don't like it the most.
Ray
But,
really doesn't like it.
We've talked about it during the budget presentation in terms of the availability of vehicles in particular, machinery additionally. We gave everybody the courtesy heads up that while we are following the depreciation schedule as it applies to vehicles and budgeting appropriately for them in the budget, the availability, especially since as a municipality purchased through CoStars, they don't exist. And that is operationally an issue that we are currently working around. We are coming up against some issues in terms of whether a vehicle has extended its life cycle or we have a new employee that requires a vehicle, which we don't have. So we are doing the best that we can. But I do believe that this problem, based off our conversations with our procurement partners through the CoStars, is going to extend, unfortunately, into future years, which is from a borough and a budgetary perspective and operational perspective, does not give me great It doesn't make me feel great. It's somewhat concerning from a global perspective. It is hard to fathom that this is the position that we're in, but it is.
Also, I'm asking this to also make the point, we had this money set aside already, right? This is not a new.
That is correct. So you budgeted these dollars for 2023. Those budget dollars don't magically disappear. If they aren't expended, they carry over into your fund balance per fund. So this $79,000 is sitting in your fund balance. So we are pulling the money directly from the source that it was previously budgeted from. It's just not specifically approved by council for 2024. And therefore, per GASB standards, I am required in my position to have this approved through a supplemental appropriation, which we do by resolution, so that when I get audited in the year, which we do every year, they pull all of the files, they see the resolution, they understand the trail of where the money was, where it currently is, and the fact that it was expended really in 2024 as opposed to 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Sound accounting business practices is our goal.
It's a
Thank
good
you.
goal.
Anyone else have any
And it'll
questions?
save us money.
All right, hearing no other questions, may I have a motion to approve Resolution 2024-03 for the supplemental appropriation to the fiscal year 24 budget in the amount of $79,860 to complete the purchase of the bucket truck, which was an approved capital item in fiscal year 2023 budget for the Public Services Department.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. God bless you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda this evening is consider appointing Dennis Fay to the Zoning Hearing Board, alternate position. Anyone have any questions? Okay, with that, may I have a motion to appoint Dennis Fay to the Zoning Hearing Board as an alternate position?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up is consider approving a memorandum of understanding between the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority and the Borough of Conshohocken on parcel number 050000400009. Any questions?
Just for clarity here, this is in no way endorsing the particular project. This is just I think Alan brought this up last time, but just to reinforce it, what this actually means.
Correct, Ralph. It's not supporting the project. It is allowing SEPTA to go through the process, which is not a process that is going to come before you, which you'll need to take in front of the zoning hearing board. From the borough's perspective, the goal is to have some teeth into, if that process fails, getting parking built. So the focus from our standpoint is on the parking, and SEPTA is permitted to go through a process on the other piece.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, no other questions. May I have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between SEPTA Authority and the Borough of Conshohocken on parcel number 050000400009, subject to the final review and approval by the Borough Manager and Borough Solicitor.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, and with that, may I have a roll call vote on this one?
Councilmember Jablonski.
Yay.
Councilmember Cerna.
Yes.
Councilmember Barton.
Yes.
Councilmember Elam.
Yes.
Councilmember Frye.
Yes.
Vice President Kingsley.
No.
And President Sokolowski.
Yes.
Move your
Okay, with that, it is a 6-1 vote. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is consider approving Resolution 2024-04, authorizing an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken and the Borough of Conshohocken Authority regarding the ownership and responsibility for the storm sewer system serving the Borough of Conshohocken. Any questions on this topic? Hearing no questions, may I have a motion to approve the intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken and the Borough of Conshohocken Authority on ownership and responsibility for stormwater system serving the borough, subject to final review and approval by the borough manager and solicitor.
Council President, I don't mean to interrupt, but there's one piece, the financial aspect of it, which I want to make sure, it was not in the agreement that council has before it. You understand it from prior discussions, but there is a specific number now, so I'd like you to have that. Steph, do you have that
Yes,
available?
so the annual number, the total minimum revenue that will be coming from the authority in terms of the stormwater fee to the borough, and that will cover both operational and capital expenditures for the year 2024, is $465,557, and that will be split over quarterly installments over the course of the year, understanding that in 2024, the fee will be prorated since the fee is not going to be implemented until the March timeframe.
Thank you, and sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Any other questions? Okay, let's continue.
I'll make that motion.
You made the motion?
I'll make the motion. yes.
Okay, we have one motion
I'll second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
And just from a procedural standpoint, so the cooperation agreement will be approved. It is subject to final review and approval by myself and the solicitor. We are working collectively with the executive director and the solicitor for the sewer authority, and it will be completely ratified by resolution on March 6th when all of the details are finalized.
Great, thank you. Next item on the agenda is consider approving a form bill of sale for the storm sewer system between the Borough of Conshohocken and the Borough of Conshohocken Authority. Any questions related to this topic? Okay, hearing no questions, could I have a motion to approve a form bill of sale for the storm sewer system between the Borough of Conshohocken and the Borough of Conshohocken Authority, subject to final review and approval by the borough manager and solicitor?
I'll make that motion. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. New business. Consider accepting a resignation for a member of the Friends of Conshohocken Parks. With that, I would need a motion to accept the resignation of Brianna DePaul from the Friends of Conshohocken Parks.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next is considering accepting a resignation for a member of the Marywood Park Commission. The motion would be to accept the resignation of Jane Flanagan from Marywood Park Commission.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up on the agenda is consider approving a renewal to the 3-year lease agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken and the United Firemen's Relief Association for the fire department radios. Any questions on that topic?
Sure, can you just clarify, or Borough Manager, can you clarify what that is?
Yes, so the Borough of Conshohocken purchases radios that are both our volunteer fire companies utilize for health and safety measures throughout the borough and with our municipal neighboring partners. We've purchased them, we lease them to the volunteer fire companies through the United Firemen's Relief Association for $1. It's a 3-year agreement for 2024, 2025, 2026. These radios are not new. They were purchased 6 years ago. This is just a renewal of the actual lease document that you approved previously. The fire radios are placed in the trucks, and they are distributed to all of the volunteers and assigned fire officers. And it is the main way that they communicate with each other for all emergencies when they are called upon to answer emergencies in the borough.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Hearing no questions, could I have a motion to approve a renewal to the lease agreement between the Borough of Conshohocken and the United Firemen's Relief Association for the fire department radios for the period of 3 years?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item is consider authorizing to bid the 2024 Liquid Fuels Road Programs Project. Any questions on the 2024 road project?
Yes, if we could just go through some of the details, where it is and what it is, please.
Tyler is actually here. Tyler, if you can just come walk through some of the details quickly.
The project this year is similar to last year. It's roadway reconstruction and resurfacing on Hallowell Street between 4th and 7th Avenues. That includes total reconstruction of all 4 intersections, replacement of all ADA ramps with compliant handicap ramps, and addition of drainage structures at 6th Avenue near Marywood Park.
Do you have an expected completion date? Or a start and a completion date? I know we're very early in the process, but.
I'd like to go to bid in March, so I'm thinking start of construction midway through April or beginning of May. That would put end of construction by the end of July.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions for Tyler? Okay, thanks, Tyler. With that, I would like a motion to authorize Remington and Vernick Engineers to bid the 2024 Liquid Fuels Road Program Project.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
And just for the record, I like to take the opportunity when I can, because I don't always get the chance. We're talking about technically 4 intersections, and that cost is roughly $790,000. So when you're talking about infrastructure and road programs, luckily for us, we're able to utilize liquid fuels dollars, which are not coming out of the borough tax dollars for this project, because you have saved frugally in order to, but that pot of money will only last so long. So as we continue the discussion in terms of infrastructure, road programs, et cetera, just keep in mind that when you're talking about 4 intersections, you're talking about that extent of money in order to get that portion. This is a problem area, so it needs to be addressed, but dollars only go so far.
Stephanie, are there any other plans in 2024 for any other road programs outside of liquid fuels?
Not at this point.
In the event of a road failure,
Yes,
would there be allocation of funds for that?
there would have to be allocation of funds for that, and that would be an emergency situation, which your solicitor would draft an emergency resolution, which would allocate reserve funds, which you have budgeted sufficiently for in order to meet the needs of that specific area.
Thank you.
And then I have a question. Are we in contact with PICO and Aqua regularly to make sure what is being taken care of
Yes.
at different points?
PICO does a really good job, I'd say, of external affairs. There is a manager that is allocated specifically to our jurisdiction and our municipality. She comes in on either twice a year or quarterly, and the executive director of operations and Suzanne, they meet and they review what our plans may be, and she brings in a plan for what they are doing in terms of either if it's gas or electric work on roads, so that we aren't spending the dollars to correct certain areas and then they're coming in and ripping it back up.
Correct, we don't have to pay for this twice.
So that relationship with PICO is set in stone, and that works very well. Aqua, while they don't come in and have that conversation with us, we have built relationships over the last 10 years. So we are fortunate enough to have a point person that gives us kind of the lay of the land of what they're thinking and what potential plans they have. Now, I will say that they are plans. In the case of emergency for either of the utilities, we are out of luck.
Correct.
They have to address it. And therefore, there is always the case that a road could be newly milled and paved and look very nice, and then you have a utility that comes in and has to unfortunately address an emergency situation.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
When utilities come in and tear up roads to do what it is they do, are they required to upgrade the road and the infrastructure underneath it when they are finished?
They are
Is
not-
that an opportunity for us to also garner some?
I can answer that because I've been involved in a lot of litigation regarding it. The answer is no. No, they're not. They're not. I mean, you could have requirements within your ordinances that could require them to patch and refill the road in a way that's safe and won't lead to significant degradation down the road. But in terms of getting them to curb, block to block, unfortunately, not as it currently stands.
So if they're working on an area that has clay and brick under it, would they take that out and bring it up to spec?
They would have to make sure their patch was safe, but they would not touch the remainder of the road, no.
All right, thanks. I tried.
A lot of people have tried.
We keep trying.
Doesn't hurt.
All right, that is the end of our official agenda. We have a section for public comment. Would anyone like to come up and public comment?
Hello again, Mary Tiernan, 1016 Harry Street. I'm glad you asked about the road work and how that, the interplay, because that was going to be one of my questions. It sounds like there's nothing imminent for Harry Street, but I hope that that can start to be budgeted for and planned. If it can't be 2024, I hope 2025. It seems like it keeps getting kicked down the road. I understand there are a lot of competing priorities, but if you drive on Harry Street, it's a disgrace. And beyond that, I think we can all agree you don't want to wait until there's an emergency because of the impact on residents, on extra costs that are incurred, all of that. But it needs to be addressed on that one. I appreciate the adding for clarity, more specificity for this ordinance, and that it doesn't overrule for the historic. I do have a question on that as well, and from the conversation that ordinances can be revisited as needed, and that any future development will have to go through planning, all of that. For one thing, for planning and getting people more involved, I think that, I hope that you revisit who gets notice for zoning or changes. When I was at one of the zoning meetings in January, some people expressed that they hadn't gotten notice. I think it's down to 250 feet, that they'll get a letter. That's not much, and people can feel impacted by development. I think if it's something significant, you should consider expanding who gets written notice, because not everybody is going either on the Borough website or on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. I wanted to add my praise for the Conshohocken bus. I think that that's a wonderful thing, a service to residents, not just for alleviating parking. I hope as it's being used that you will consider additional stops more along the avenues, because I think you would get more participation for some people who might be interested or inclined. Even if it only seems a few block walk, it might be too much for them to go to. So if you could intersperse more stops, I think you'll get even more participation, but I want to applaud you all for that. My last one for the ordinance, and thinking about the property, the old car dealership property, Profco property now. At the February 17th hearing, Dave Rollins noted he had concerns that this is a form of spot zoning. One of my concerns that I relayed to Ralph but forgot to mention earlier, I wish that there would be more specificity in the ordinance or concern or consideration about not the sale of gas. I know in the ordinance it had for grocer, not to include sale of gas if it was a grocery market. I fear that still could give a possible developer a way to barrow through and ask for zoning exemption. I get that we can ask for and be at planning meetings, but that also goes back to needing more written notification to people and not just 250 feet. My last point, I don't know how this can be done, if it can be done, but I really wish as a town, and maybe this is already in the works and we don't know about this on the resident level, but more interaction with Plymouth and White Marsh, because I think one of the things that really feels burdensome for many residents in town is how much development there is on lower avenues and by the river. And it's our zip code, but we know it's either Plymouth or White Marsh approving it. Once again, as I said at the last meeting, they're pushing things through. We have to deal with the consequences. What can we do as a town to try to, as a region to try to address that? I don't know, I know that we can't legally compel them to play nice with others, or Mr. Peters can tell us on that, but I imagine not. But what can you all do? Is there anything to try to get them to look at the big picture and the regional picture? It seems very easy that they approve it, they're getting the revenue, but we bear the consequences. So how can you, what can you do? Can you consider it? Because I think that that would help address a lot of concerns that residents have, a lot of frustration, frankly, that people feel in town. You know, we feel kind of victimized by this. I mean, it's a large part of the traffic, all of that. So thank you very much for hearing these comments, for everything that you've done tonight and ongoing.
Thanks, Mary. Steph, do you want to talk a little bit about us sitting in on their planning session, that we have been active participants in some of White Marsh's planning and development piece of it, so that we know what they're at least planning?
Yes, there is a relationship between the Borough Land Development Department and the White Marsh and Plymouth. There's a little bit of collaboration. I would say that unfortunately there is definitely, the municipality is looking at it from the perspective of their municipality. Ironically, then they make decisions and then need to turn around and say, well, we need you for this, this, and this. So I would say that council has given administration the direction to make sure they're monitoring decisions that White Marsh or Plymouth are making. We do occasionally send a reminder, make a phone call specifically to specific individuals at both municipalities to say, like, is there an update? Do we have, I think Ralph specifically requested that be put as a priority, especially what's happening in that portion of White Marsh that backs up to those upper avenues. So I have a contact in White Marsh that I did, Ralph was on it and made sure that I was pestering White Marsh to get some more information. So they know we're there. I can't promise that any pressure that we put on them or request will make a difference, but at least our voice is heard.
It is, I'm sorry,
You're a zoning guy.
I think we're all going to jump on this. It is absolutely an issue that we are concerned with. You see it in the advertisement of the buildings. They build in White Marsh and they mark it as Conshohocken. It's a compliment to Conshohocken, great, but it is absolutely an issue that we are concerned with about the toll on our infrastructure, emergency services across the board. So absolutely.
And Mary, you are not the first person to have brought this up.
Yeah.
There's been other requests for information about that. So Steph and I have been in contact, and a lot of it does relate to, well, some of it, I shouldn't say a lot of it, but some of it does relate to the upper avenues where we're located and what's going on up there. So Steph was definitely proactive in reaching out to the township and making them aware that these concerns exist.
Stephanie, how is our capacity regarding the sewer authority? Are we going to be able to handle all these new developments that they're dumping?
So the answer is yes. I sit on the Sewer Authority Board, and that was a question that I had asked over the past couple of months, that if we could take a look at our capacity to ensure that we have enough. And
Because I know we're getting close.
there's a lot of work that's been done with how they're handling sludge and water and all of that, which has given us a little bit of additional capacity.
Okay.
I won't really speak to it like I have a knowledge of it.
Yeah.
I know Ed's sitting in the back. I don't know, Ed, if you want to comment on that. This is Ed Mungan. He is our manager at the Sewer Authority.
Yeah, so our capacity is actually in good shape.
Okay.
Our plant was designed for 3 million gallons per day. Our license is for 2.3 million gallons per day. We're currently at like 1.1 million gallons per day. So we could literally take another Conshohocken in, another West Conshohocken.
But thank you. But thanks.
No more building, just capacity.
Thanks, Ed, for being called on the spot. I guess I have just one follow-up question, probably to Mike. So can't really do anything as Conshohocken and them being White Marsh. Are we able to go to their zoning hearings and actually sit in as a?
Absolutely, and we have in certain contexts. So I'll give you an obvious one. 401, 433, it splits the two. So when they were considering that, someone from my office went to all of those meetings to monitor it. When there was a development going in down in that area, council at that time had actually directed Steph and I to reach out to them to determine what was going on and where it was at in the process. And you can absolutely take a position where it's appropriate. You have to make sure that we have a specific reason for taking that position, but I have no doubt that we would if we did. That doesn't mean that we could oppose it or legally stop it, but it does mean that we could voice our concerns and our issues. And there are times where that's enough to get something done. Maybe not completely satisfy everyone, but there are things we can do. Can't stop it, but we can participate. And we can do that more in the future if you'd like to.
So have you seen that if a private citizen from the upper avenues went as a to oppose it versus a council sending our posse?
Yeah, so as a legal matter, the resident would actually have more legal standing to do so because they have a property interest in that area.
Okay.
The council would have more political power than legal power. So oftentimes what you would try to do is do both. So there's be nothing wrong with us collaborating with a member of the public up there to monitor meetings like that. Again, it wouldn't be appropriate for us for you to tell me to represent them so we had standing or anything like that, but we could certainly cooperate. There'd be nothing wrong with that.
I'd actually have some questions about emergency services, right? So Conshohocken has worked very hard and very aggressively to be state-of-the-art when it comes to emergency services. How can we, and I'm not making any comments about or any opinion or drawing any conclusions about White Marsh in particular in that region, how can we better build a relationship? Because we are going to be there and use our emergency services. So how do we, I don't want to say require, right? So we require our buildings to meet certain levels above and beyond. But so how can we work better with them? Because our emergency services are going to be the ones responding to some of these.
So there's collaboration on the development side from White Marsh and Conshohocken. You are correct that we have decided that we were going to have specific standards, especially on the emergency management side of this. There is a relationship that has been developed between emergency management coordinator on our end and their emergency management coordinator. There is some turnover in White Marsh right now, and so we always have it on our radar to keep those relationships. We thrive off of the relationships with our bordering municipalities. They are very important. They are pivotal in order to get certain things done. At the same time, council has made the decision that Conshohocken is going to be, in essence, self-sufficient when it comes to matters of emergency management. And therefore, we are placed in a position where there are municipalities that turn to us, just like we do, and we feel like the investment in our community, just like they come and help us when we need it, we would be doing the same thing for them. So my short answer is it's all about the relationships. They are important. I have that conversation with all of you when we were talking about dealing with neighboring municipalities, and I would say rest assured that our emergency management coordinator and our deputy emergency management coordinators are making sure that they have those contacts up to date with both White Marsh and Plymouth.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Any other public comment? Okay. Mayor Aronson, do you have anything you'd like to talk about tonight?
Always, absolutely. Thank you, President Sokolowski. So last night we had a visit from Ned Hector at the Masonic Lodge, the Fritz Lodge. I made the mistake of only bringing 2 Girl Scout cookies for Thomas. So we didn't make it through the whole thing. And a big thank you to Councilman Fry's daughter for delivering those. But I did learn that Ned Hector was one of the first residents of Conshohocken before there was a Conshohocken. We were still Plymouth Township. And once we were established, Hector Street was named in his honor. So thank you to the Fritz Lodge for continuing this really awesome series of historical speakers that come through every so often, every year. We also had a big kickoff for the Conchi Shuttle. We had the news stations and county commissioners and senators and state rep. But I had a really wonderful conversation with the one of our drivers, and he was a former Scepter driver, and he told me how much he loves the route and he loves Conshohocken Borough, and how excited he is to be driving the shuttle. And then he wanted to take a picture with the mayor for his mom in Jamaica, so that's where that picture came from. So it's just so nice to see the person that's going to interact with our residents on a daily basis. So thank you, Ed, for doing that. And then finally, we have our Arts Festival. Registration is open for vendors and cars, and we're excited to have everyone come out on June 1st to what I believe is the official kickoff to summer. So mark your calendars, and thank you, Council, and to our admin for your support. That's it.
Thank you. Councilman Frey, do you have anything this evening?
Yeah, actually. I just wanted to take a second to thank the people who have engaged with me since starting in January. The dialogue, and I've said this to some of you, specifically Marianne, I wrote you an email tonight that thanked you. That dialogue with me, and I think every person on council can agree, the more we have dialogue with the residents, the better it will make us at representing you, even if we don't make the decision that everybody wants 100% of the time. That dialogue is important, so I just wanted to publicly thank you and everyone who's not here as well, because I did speak to a lot of people about this. So I just really wanted to tell you guys thank you for that.
Councilmember Elm?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing?
Yes, I do. On February 8th, I took a trip into the city to the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. They do a lot within the city, but they also do a lot with surrounding areas. And the topic was e-bikes and e-scooters, which we are seeing more of even within our borough. Their company called Indigo provides e-bikes for the city. But I was more interested in how do you handle the e-bikes and the e-scooters who are coming through our borough. You have to obey the same rules as if you're in a car. You can't be on the pavement. You can walk your bike or e-scooter on the pavement. You're supposed to stop at stop signs. And it was just a really good eye-opener. I have a lot of information from it, and who knows, maybe down the road somewhere we'll provide e-bikes for people. We shall see.
That would be helpful going up some of our hills.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Mr. Cerna?
Yes, the EAC, the Conshohocken Environmental Advisory Council, will be hosting its second annual Green Fest on April 27th. It's going to take place at the Community Center, Fellowship House, and it's going to be it's a family-friendly event. They're going to have a lot of eco-friendly activities that show kids about and families ways that they could either do things like conserve energy at home or tap into renewable energy. There'll be lots of activities for kids. And right now we plan to have REI out. They came out last year and had a cool little outdoor setup so you could see like eco-friendly camping. And I don't think I can announce the other sponsor yet, but it's going to be cool. So just want to let everybody know about that. It's April 27th, Conshohocken Green Fest.
Thank you. Mr. Chmielewski. Chmielewski.
Closer. Nothing for me tonight, thank you.
Great. All right, with that, again, thank you to all, and this evening's meeting is adjourned.